Val?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect.
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I just want to confirm really quick. I saw that Liz Elliott had her hand raised. Liz, can you please confirm that you can hear us now too?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you both. My apologies.
Good to proceed?
Yes, Chair, you're okay to proceed. Thank you very much.
Michael, with that, we're going to move on to agenda item F, consent calendar. Motion to approve the minutes and resolution 2024-07. So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second. Any further discussion? Questions, comments, concerns? Anybody online, Valerie? Nope.
Nope.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent calendar passes. We're going to move on to agenda item 1, well mitigation status update. Michael.
A presentation by our consultant, Todd Groundwater, but you may remember in the revised groundwater sustainability plan, we were obligated to do a well mitigation plan. So basically find a way to improve wells that go dry because of lower groundwater levels. So we have a small group of us, of East Turlock folks and West Turlock folks, who get together periodically every month or so, working with the consultant to develop that plan. It is due, we committed to get that done by the end of January of next year. And so this is kind of a status update, and then hopefully in the new year, we'll bring you the final plan, and you can see that and adopt that, and we can get that to DWR. So with that, though, I'll hand over to Liz Elliott for the main presentation.
Thanks, Michael. Can everybody hear and see me clearly? Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, we hear you, Liz.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thanks so much for having me. As Michael said, we've been working on developing a well mitigation plan, and just wanted to give you a brief update of where we are at. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. As Michael indicated, and as you probably know, the revised GSP includes resolutions from both GSAs to develop and implement a well mitigation program no later than January 31st, 2025. The revised GSP also includes a draft MOU for adopting a well mitigation program. And in this draft MOU, it indicates that the well mitigation program will apply to wells affected by declining groundwater levels occurring after January 6, 2022, which is the date of GSP adoption. As part of the revised GSP, in response to DWR's request, we conducted a well impacts analysis. And it indicated that approximately 85 wells are at risk of becoming dry at the 2027 interim milestone groundwater level. Next slide, please. So where are we at? Developing this draft well mitigation plan is a collaborative effort. We're working with the Well Mitigation Committee, the Joint Tax. There's going to be outreach provided by Turlock Irrigation District as well as ETS GSA. And we're getting guidance from self-help enterprises along the way. The GSA has formed a well mitigation committee that has representatives from both TACs. And as Michael said, we've been meeting periodically once or twice a month since we've started developing this plan. We also have been collaborating with Valley Water Collaborative, and we are in the process right now of subcontracting self-help enterprises. We recently got a proposal from them, and they will be attending the remaining well mitigation committee meetings. They'll be reviewing the draft well mitigation plan, and most likely will be helping with program implementation, although that's not set in stone yet. The subcontract is for helping us develop the plan, not implementation yet. But if they are involved with implementation, it'll be most likely for emergency response measures. Next slide, please. So what's the process? So like I said, we had a draft MOU in the revised GSP, And this was sort of a framework for the program. And we're taking that framework and building on it and producing a document, the well mitigation plan. Next slide, please. And once we have a final document, we're going to use that to help us finalize the memorandum of understanding for adopting a well mitigation program. And we will also be doing outreach. And part of the outreach will include a link on the Turlock groundwater webpage to the well mitigation plan document, as well as additional information about the plan. And once we get it implemented, the webpage will also have the application and claims information for the public. Next slide, please. So key issues. So the well mitigation program will provide a claims process for affected well owners and mitigation measures for domestic water supply wells that have experienced adverse impacts due to declining groundwater levels and resulting land subsidence and/or degraded groundwater quality. The program will provide interim, short-term, and long-term mitigation measures for domestic water supply wells that have experienced adverse impacts due to declining groundwater levels after January 6, 2022. As part of the MOU, the GSAs have committed to establishing a joint well mitigation fund by January 2025 with an initial funding amount of about $200,000. And the GSAs have also agreed to fund this program on an annual basis. Next slide, please. So the claims process, it's multi-step. The first step will be application submittal, and then the GSAs will assess the mitigation need, and then they'll make a recommendation regarding the mitigation funding. They'll make a recommendation for mitigation and approval, and they'll complete a well owner agreement, and then there will also be appeals process if necessary. And to be eligible for the program, an applicant must document that cause of well failure or diminished well yield is the declining water levels resulting from overdraft pumping that occurred on or after January 6, 2022. Next slide, please. So next steps. We are a couple weeks away from finishing an administrative draft of this plan. Once it's complete on November 27th, we will provide this to the Well Mitigation Committee and also to Self-Help Enterprises for review. We'll collect comments and edits and revise the document, and we will be presenting this document to the Joint Tax on December 10th. And then in January, the plan will be completed and adopted by both GSAs. Next slide, please. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Shalom, if I may chip in a little bit. So Self-Help Enterprises has been doing this work throughout the San Joaquin Valley. They're based out of Visalia, have a lot of experience working with disadvantaged communities, primarily a housing provider initially, but working on drinking water in areas where wells have been going dry. So having them as a partner has been incredibly valuable because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Getting good experience to help us along is a good thing. Obviously, the main issue is going to be how do we help people who have dry wells without and also minimize our financial exposure, because obviously we don't have a huge expense in front of us if a lot of wells go dry. So the key issue is avoiding dry wells in the first place. What can we do to implement our management actions in our sustainability plans to make sure wells don't go dry in the first place? And I think we're already seeing some of that progress, and hopefully the well measurements this year will show that. I feel like the 87 or whatever it is projected wells that could go dry by 2027 has probably been a conservative and overestimation. We're not seeing that right now in the county data. But again, we have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, and that's what we're doing. But we're going to put a thorough plan in place and provide all the help we can and mitigate where we have to, but also implement our plan faithfully to minimize the number of wells that do go dry in the first place. I think that's the key takeaway here. So avoiding mitigation in the first place is the most important thing. So I just want to add that little bit of color commentary to the conversation.
Deadline on this is?
End of January 2025 to get it into DWR. So
Any help with doing it quicker on the approval of the overall plan, or?
I mean, I'm tempted if we have a good draft done by the end of the year, getting that in front of them, saying, look, we're implementing, here we are, all that stuff. I think all that helps. They've been, you know, they've been open to an open dialogue. I just don't know formally. We submitted in a formal document back in the summer, and that's probably it. But I don't think there's any reason not to be able to kind of just show them the good faith implementation we've been doing. And again, the email I got back from my rep last week was like, hey, great work on the new irrigation rules. Glad to see you guys are working together. That's really good to see. And we're continuing to work on reviewing your GSP. So anything we can do to create a favorable impression, I think is a good thing, and happy to do that.
That initial 200,000, Michael, is that to fix wells that have issues, or is that just for the?
That's the entire program. So the program could be like, you know, an emergency tank program. Your well goes dry just temporarily, and Merced and Stanislaus County have experience with this. You bring in a 500-gallon tank or whatever, and provide emergency water or bottled water over a weekend, and then we can get in, fix the well, and it's good to go. Or it may be a replacement well, it might be a new pump. It could be any range of mitigation measures, and that'll be in the plan, kind of short-term, medium-term, long-term, from the very cheap to the very expensive. So it could be anything, to answer your question. But this is kind of the new normal in SGMA in the state of California. They want to see these mitigation plans everywhere. Valerie backed me up on that. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but that's what we've seen elsewhere throughout the state.
Yep. No, DWR has, even though mitigation isn't expressly written in SGMA, their position has become that if a GSA allows continued overdraft at all in any part of the subbasin, that without mitigation, they feel like it's not compliant with SGMA. So that's kind of the relationship. If you're going to allow any degradation, or if you're going to allow continued pumping, basically DWR has read into the law that you know, you have to mitigate for that to help with the drinking water impacts.
Questions? Okay, moving on. Looks like we're getting to agenda item H, comments from the board. It's only 6:20, we gotta have some comments from the board.
You're doing a good job.
Efficiency, Joe.
Hopefully the date's right here. The next regular meeting of the West Turlock GSA will be held on Thursday, February 13th at 6 p.m. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Sounds like it, but it sounds like we may need to call a special meeting sooner as it relates to adoption of the well mitigation plan. So once we have a more firm date on when that might be, then I will poll board members to determine when we might be able to meet in January.
Moving a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.